So we've been looking at lamenting, and Psalm 3 encouraged us to call out, and I think Psalm 4 encourages us to let out. This psalm is thought of as an evening psalm, and it ends in a way that I think we all would love. In peace I will lie down and sleep, for you alone, Lord, make me dwell in safety. I mean, how good would it be to have a night's sleep that's not just good, but that it's peaceful? But unfortunately for many, sleep feels like a battle. Just to get to sleep, or the right amount of sleep, or even wakening and struggling to get back to sleep, it can be really hard work. And maybe that's because we live in a stressful, fast-paced world where more than ever we're switched on to life and work and activity, and just to switch off is really hard. Or maybe it's that our lives become filled with stuff. Some that's good, some that's just stuff, and some that's bad and actually causes us to stress, worry and panic. Often with these things, life gets in the way of actually having to deal with them. The day-to-day things distract us from that stuff, but it always comes out in some way. And often it's only when trying to sleep we find ourselves away from distraction. It's then that our mind might start to wander, thinking about life in general, or about stuff you need to do or finish, or even at times those worrying things that we've been avoiding start to bubble up and appear. And that's when the night can become a little bit darker. So how do we handle this and get that peace? Well, while the psalm ends well for David, the beginning doesn't look so great. In verse 1, you can imagine that David has so much going on inside him. It says that he's filled with distress, but he desires relief. And just like we've seen in Psalm 3, he calls out to God. He recognizes that God can meet him in this, and then he lets out. And from verse 2 to 7, everything that's distressing him, that he can't handle by himself, he just lets it all out. People's desires for false gods, their lackluster faith, people's doubts about him as king and about whether or not he's actually good and can bring them prosperity. It all just floods out of him. Nothing's held back. Nothing's hidden. He just lets it out. The night is not an opportunity for David to fall deeper into despair and distress, but rather it's a moment where he can actively align himself to God, and he can call out to him and let out everything that was in him. And so can we. You know, for most people, the last thing that we do before sleeping is that we check our mobile phone. But what if we could do something a little bit different? There's a prayer called Examine that you can do, and basically it's just examining the day that's been with God. And the church website actually has a prayer for this, and there'll be a link below. And there's 3 ways that you can examine your day with God. The first is to give thanks and to think, what am I thankful for in the day that's been as I've lived it? The second is to confess. And as I look at my day and where I've gone wrong, what could I have done differently? Where do I need help? And the third is to pass over. Things that sadden or worry or distress you in your own life or in the world around you, it's passing that over to God. Now, God knows our day, and he knows what we felt and what's distressing us. And we're not filling him in or surprising him by doing this, but by doing so, we're going right back to Psalm 1, recognizing that there is a stream or a source of living water that we can put our roots into, that will satisfy us and feed us in the best and worst of times. And it all comes from this source, and this prayer just helps us to go to it and to put our roots into it. The psalm begins in distress and ends in a peaceful night's sleep. And no doubt those feelings and scenarios in David's life were still there in the morning, because things like that don't just disappear, but I'm sure they didn't rule or control him. Those things seem to have lost their power. And David once again gives us a picture of what it means to lament. It's calling out and it's letting out. It's calling out to a God who he knows to be righteous, good, and able to handle all that he has to let out to him. And we can do that too. We can know that he is the one who we can truly call out to and let out to, and that he'll be more than able to meet us in all of that, no matter what's going on.